Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night, it is your boy, the Horrorlander, and today I'm going to be reviewing the newly released Goosebumps book from the House of Shivers series. That is One Night at Camp Bigfoot. And I mean, it's literally freshly released because I had pre-ordered this one on Kindle and it just got delivered to my Kindle today. And this one has been available like a week ago in Barnes& and Noble, but it's kind of like official release time now. So this is going to probably be like the latest review I've ever done for a Goosebumps book. And of course, I read a lot of adult horror and young adult and watch movies and short story collections I read, books I read, comics I read. But Goosebumps has always been the foundation of my channel. So anytime something new's coming out in Goosebumps or kids horror, it's always got a soft place in my heart. And One Night at Camp Bigfoot initially had some excitement around it because this is the first time that we're seeing the famous cryptid and monster, Bigfoot, being used in a mainline Goosebumps story. I think it might be the first time we're actually seeing a real cryptid being used in a Goosebumps mainline story because, I guess you can count werewolves and vampires into cryptids, but they're more so universal monsters. This is the first time that we're actually seeing a real deal cryptid, and Bigfoot is one of the most popular ones out there. So it was pretty exciting to hear about that, the title, seeing the cover, and getting that confirmation. And me being a creature feature and cryptid fan, I kind of had a soft spot coming up for this one. I'm like, I definitely got to give this book a chance and read it when it comes out because of that specific idea and concept for the story. But when the cover did release, this one was divisive. So let's address the elephant in the room, or I guess you could say the Sasquatch in the room. The cover caused a lot of drama in the community. People were debating whether it was AI or not. And Robert Ball, of course, had to show off his sketches and make sure that he's not doing AI. I think on Reddit they put this cover through an AI check, and 50-60% of the test it failed, meaning it was not AI, it passed in that regard. And just overall, Scholastic is such a huge company with all this money, and they have famous artists on their team that are renowned, like Tim Jacobus, Craig White, Brandon Dorman, Mark Nagata. So kind of strange for them to go with that type of stuff. But, it is what it is. I'm not going to talk about that because it caused a huge uproar. Because today we're going to be talking about the story. And quite frankly, if you ask me, unless you are a middle schooler or younger, if you are a teenager, if you are an adult, and the cover of a book determines whether or not you buy it, it determines whether or not you read the book. In the words of Agent 00, you're a bot. You're a bot. You're an NPC. There's no way that you are judging books off their covers as a grown man or a grown woman. Nah, can't be. So, with that being said, let's get into the book review. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the plot, and then I will go into my positives and negatives and letting you guys know the overall score. And since House of Shivers is brand new, I will talk about the general ranking of the book compared to the other ones that I've read, because I'm caught up so far to House of Shivers. So without further ado, get your camping gear, hop in that canoe, because we're about to go to the lagoon in the woods to go look at our boy, Bigfoot. Let's go. So One Night at Camp Bigfoot opens up with your main protagonist named Harper. She is a girl who's hanging out with her best friend, who I think is named Malin, and she essentially is super obsessed with monsters. She loves drawing monsters. She loves looking at different cryptids. You actually get her talking about the Loch Ness Monster, Champ, Nessie, some other things involving the type of cryptid world. And you get the idea from her best friend that she's like a horror nerd. She's super obsessed with it, more than anyone realistically should be. And after a little prank jump out scare kind of happens with her little brother named DJ, you then find out that them as siblings are both monster fans and cryptid fans. And the parents, who own a little bake shop, end up coming back from work. And you find out that even though the parents have been struggling a bit with gathering together money, they've gathered enough cash to send off their kids for this summer to a camp. But the kids wanted an adventurous summer camp with all your typical summer camp activities. What ends up happening is that they end up getting sent to a place called Camp Woo Woo. Yeah, Camp Woo Woo. Like that Patrick episode when he's like, wee woo, woo woo. Crazy name. But apparently it's a camp meant for artwork and creative arts and stuff like that. So it's more so like an artistic camp, and that's not really what they're looking for, so they feel like it's going to be a huge bummer. And unfortunately, after her best friend, the main character's best friend, tries to make it look like she's sick by taking red marker and putting red spots all over her face to try to fool her parents that she has like measles or something. It ends up being permanent marker. She can't wash it off, so those marks are stuck in her face, and now she's going to look like a goofball going to the new camp. However, things kind of go down a different road, no pun intended, because they end up getting to Camp Woo Woo, and there's a sign that says it's closed. And they can't believe that because they already, the parents paid money to get to this camp. They already set everything up, and they didn't get any notification or message that the camp was closed down. So they end up approaching the camp, getting to the mess hall, and trying to see if there's any counselors or adults that they can speak to about what really is going on. Meanwhile, the kids are getting pretty excited because they might have a chance to be saved from going to this lame ass camp. And when they get to the mess hall and the dad opens the door, he sees like four grizzly bears that are fighting and wrestling each other inside of the building. And the bears spot them, get aggravated, and start charging towards them before they flee back to their car while closing the doors. And out comes this man who basically explains that Camp Woo Woo has been closed down due to bears invading the camp. And since the bears are endangered species, they're not able to physically remove them without it causing legal problems. So they're kind of in a predicament, and they've refunded all the parents, but they weren't able to get out update messages in time. So these group of parents weren't able to find out for their kids. And even though the kids are happy, there's part of them that still feels like they want to go to an actual camp. And that's when the mother and parent inquire to the guidance counselor, like, is there any other options nearby that we can go to take our kids? And he explains that there is a camp that's further down, deeper into the woods. But he's heard scary things about it. There's some rumors involving that camp. But due to the fact that they're kind of in a desperate condition and they want to make sure their kids are not disappointed this summer, they end up driving through the woods, going through all the brushes and dark trees where sunlight is fading out through the canopy. And it's very ominous. And they hear strange animals that are howling out there from all around them. So they're not really sure what's going on. And eventually they do get to the camp. And the camp is called Camp Bigfoot. And they run into the main camp counselor leader named Uncle Squatch. And Uncle Squatch basically explains the camp. And the main gimmick, the main theme of this camp that makes it so popular is that it's featured in Bigfoot Woods. These part of the woods is a place where there's been a lot of urban legends and folk tales and eyewitness encounters about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, actually being out in the woods. People have spotted it. People have basically made it like a local urban craze. And that's why kids and people keep coming back all the time, because Bigfoot is the most famous cryptid, especially in America. So people are going there and trying to see the monster, trying to see the cryptid for themselves. And that's what gets all the other kids so excited to be there. And initially they think that it might just be a gimmick, but when they see that campers, are in the mess hall practicing how to scream, because when they're out in the woods for this one event that I'm going to mention upcoming, they need to know how to alert each other in case there's danger, in case they do run into a Bigfoot and they need a guidance counselor's help or they need a fellow camper's help. They're training for that. He has a large bull mastiff dog named Tiny, ironically, who's like a guard dog meant to protect the kids at the camp from any potential Bigfoot encounter. There's a giant Bigfoot statue that was like sculpted by somebody with fur and stuff. So they start getting the impression that, like, is it really a joke, or do they actually believe that Bigfoot is out there? And that's when Uncle Squatch explains that one of the big events that happens at this camp is they go on an overnight kind of hike in the woods to go looking for Bigfoot, to go find it. And it's a big craze for the kids. It's meant to get them scared, to get them excited, feel like it's an adventure. And that right away gets the main character Harper and her brother DJ's attention, because they love monsters, they love cryptids. So ding, 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 ding. This sounds like the perfect place for them to be. And it's just the right amount of weird, and all the kids look like they're having fun. So it looks like an ideal camp to be at. But the mom and dad are kind of hesitant, especially the mom. She's kind of getting some red flags as to, like, if you have all these security protections, like, is there idea that my kids would actually be in threat? Is there a chance that Bigfoot might do something to them? He might come in the camp and actually attack or hurt the campers. But Uncle Squatch kind of reassures them that nothing's going to happen. They're safe with us. And eventually the mom ends up getting persuaded and the dad ends up leaving them be. And that's when DJ ends up getting taken to the boys' side of the camp. Harper ends up getting taken to the girls' side, and they start getting acclimated. And the anticipation for the overnight trip into the woods to find Bigfoot starts building up. But there's a little bit of a conflict throughout the story. That is that, is this one giant elaborate prank? Is there actually a Bigfoot? Because some of the interactions that Harper has with some other girls in her cabin lodge that she's bunking with kind of tease her. And one girl, I think her name is Cora Ann. Such a strange name for a girl, but her name is Cora Ann. She tells her that she was at this camp a year prior, and it's all a big hoax. Uncle Squatch actually dresses up as a Bigfoot and does these big elaborate pranks, and it's just to scare the new campers. And he makes all the old campers promise before coming back that they don't tell any of the new campers anything. So there's a little bit of a mystery and tension involving that, and the story is gonna end up trying to find out the mystery. Harper has to figure out the mystery of, is this one big joke or is this actually something? And there might be some other things going on in this camp that's kind of teased when she speaks to particularly Cora Ann, who has a strange sense of humor in the sense that she's very deadpan when she speaks about her being something other than human. She might act up when the full moon comes out, if you can pick up what I'm putting down. So yeah, that's effectively the story without me giving too much away. So let's get into the positives and then the negatives. And I'll also just briefly say what's my general thoughts about this book. So going into the positives at One Night at Camp Bigfoot, this is a good book. I enjoyed the book. I liked the book. I had mild fun with it. The positives to this book definitely come down to the atmosphere, the setting. Every time that the kids are out in the woods, kind of patrolling the dark woods at night, the descriptions of crunching over dead leaves and the moonlight peering through the canopy and hearing things out in the woods, howling and creatures, stalking shadows and all that good stuff that you get when you're in an unfamiliar, isolated setting, that's all here in this book. It adds to atmosphere, it adds to tension, it makes you genuinely feel a little bit scared at points as to what might happen to these girls and campers while they're out there. It reminds me a little bit of Return to Ghost Camp when I read that, because it had a similar kind of thing. Although I think that level was more. Here it's still good though. And another positive is the climax to the book. This book has good action sequences, good horror action. It's not often in Goosebumps that you get action sequences. Sometimes you get it, but it's not like a complete rarity, but it's not common. So having it in here, actual action sequences, some fighting going on, some back and forth between certain things, it's very fun, and I did enjoy that. And it did make the climax feel like it had a good payoff, because it's not exactly everything is a fake out. No, there's some gravity behind the situation. There's certain reveals that happen, and some pretty intense scenes with some again, action and violence, if you can call it that. And on top of that, I think the character dialogue in this book is also good, especially in the very beginning when Harper and DJ are interacting with their parents. They have good banter with their parents. It's good dialogue. Although the characters are not nothing that stands out in terms of Harper's personality, in terms of DJ's personality, or some of the other kids, that just good interaction and good dialogue makes it kind of feel smooth to read through. So those are kind of my big things. Again, you know the title of the book, so something involving the title of the book is involved in the story, and I like its appearance. I like when that thing appears. I feel like I don't need to do too much spoilers on that, but it's still hot off the press, so I don't want to give too much. But yeah, I did enjoy the presence of a certain monster or monsters or things when they are interacting and getting into action sequences and some pretty creepy moments later on. But then we do have to talk about the negatives. So let's get into what's really holding this book back, in my opinion. So because I think the book is mild good, of course, it's not that very good range, that great, fantastic, perfect. It's not near that. And the reason why is because the biggest weakness in this book is without a doubt a twist that happens later on, where it's not like a typical Goosebumps twist. It's kind of teased throughout the story. And when you hear a certain character that the protagonist speaks to and starts saying some weird things to her, if you've read kids' horror or you're familiar with kids' horror, or honestly, if you're familiar with horror in general, it's very easy to pick up where the story is leading with that. So it's quite predictable. But the scale of the twist is what's the surprise. Like, what you would initially expect is going to be the twist and maybe some explanation. The scale of the twist increases more than I expected. And I was like, what the hell is all this? And while it's fun to watch, the biggest problem is that after this twist happens and you find out some things and you see some crazy things play out, there is zero explanation. I mean, zero explanation. There's nothing explained. And I know some people give passes to R.L. Stine not explaining stuff. I don't expect the guy to give one-page epilogue or, exposition dump on us. But a few sentences, a paragraph is fine to give when it comes to explaining a big mystery involving something. And I would give a pass sometimes if it's like just a in-your-face Goosebumps, like schlocky twist or comic book kind of throw-in-your-face twist at the very end, or it's something really small. But here it's not small. This is a mystery that's predictable, but it's teased throughout the book. It keeps getting egged on throughout the story, where the main character, Harper, keeps asking a certain character, like, what did you mean by that? What did you mean by that? What did you mean by that? Were you joking? Are you not joking? What did you mean by that? What did you mean by that? What did you mean by that? And you find out what that character meant by that. And then you find out that a bunch of other things might have some things to say. Maybe have some things to explain what they meant by that. Because Bigfoot is not the only thing that apparently exists in this camp. And when that whole sequence happens, afterwards, the book pretty much ends. The book pretty much wraps up. The book pretty much, it doesn't have a twist ending. It just ends up with like a more so happy ending, but there's no explanation. There's nothing to grasp. There's nothing to make it make sense. It just feels random. It just feels random as hell. And that to me is a big problem, because it was not just a throwaway twist. No, this was something that kept getting egged on throughout the story. And if you keep egging it on throughout the story and you reveal it and you give us nothing to explain it, I can't chew on it. I can't digest it. I mean, I guess I can chew on it, but I won't be able to digest it. It won't be able to make sense to me. I won't be able to think that this was a good writing point or this was a good twist. No, because there's no reason given as to why it happened. And if you read the book, if you read the story, you will pick up what I'm putting down when it comes to that moment in the book and afterward. Another thing about the book is that it does feel a little dragged on, compared to some other Goosebumps stories that have come out in the modern age, particularly with House of Shivers. This one feels very simple, and while it is good, it does feel dragged out at points. Like, I remember reading through it and I'm like, okay, they're really, dragging on this mystery towards the very end. Like, you don't see certain things, certain entities until the very end, and then it's all just kind of shoved in your face. And then that's it. So I feel like the story was getting dragged out, them investigating, them going out into the woods, her constantly asking different people about, like, what did they mean by that? Is it real? Is it not? Trying to figure out if this is all a prank or not. You can kind of tell that there's padding in this book. There's clear padding. Again, no pun intended, because we're talking about Bigfoot. So those are sort of the big weaknesses involving it. Just the fact that, it's extremely simple and feels dragged out with a lot of padding. And the fact that, even though there is some good action sequences towards the end and some crazy reveals, they have no explanation. They have no rhyme or reason as to why that happened. So it just feels very random. Just go gadget, throw it in there. And then at the end, it's sort of just served up to you like you're just supposed to, yeah, man, fun tale. Let's wait till next time. Okay. That's one way to end the book after you do that as the climax. So, Yeah, I might feel like I'm rambling, but I'm trying to say all these things without, again, spoiling it because it's a fresh book. So forgive me for that. I don't want you guys to go in there and feel like I ruined something for you while you're reading. But those are my general thoughts. So yeah, I'd give this one 8 out of 10. I'd give it a flat 8 out of 10. It's good. So in terms of the ranking, from top to bottom, I have Night of the Living Mummy, The Last Sleepover, One Night at Camp Bigfoot, Scariest Book Ever, Goblin Monday, and at the way bottom is Say My Name, Say My Name. Um, I think that The Last Sleepover is a better book than this one because Emily is a way better villain. She's fantastic. Her whole backstory, the emotions that she invokes for you, the revenge, the maliciousness, some of her hauntings and powers that she shows throughout the story. I think it's a more compelling story. It has more going on to it, more layers. On top of that, you also have dual protagonists, the older one who's the brother and the younger one who are working together. The main weaknesses with that one was towards the third act, there's like a fake out thing, and then there's a kumbaya kind of ending. But overall, the story up until that point still felt more compelling and more fleshed out and more just, I guess, memorable. And then Night of Living Mummy to me, and also One Last Sleepover is a scary book, so it's got that scary kind of gruesome aspect, creepy aspect. Night of Living Mummy is not a scary book by any means, but it to me is the most complete story. Like it's an adventure story, but the stuff that R.L. Stine did with ancient Egypt in Night of Living Mummy is fantastic. It's great. You know, you get to see some of the emotional stuff involving a young pharaoh and his family. There's talks about like spiritual and God, so it's kind of honoring the culture of ancient Egypt. It's also talking about socio-political struggle in a Goosebumps book of all places, and it's actually done well without being abhorrent. You know, it's ancient Egyptian, politics and becoming a king and talking about that stuff. Some pretty gruesome scenes involving what happens to certain characters, particularly the kid in that ancient Egypt part. And the idea of two different timelines coming together, facing off against each other, some time travel, some magic, and it felt very much like a well wrapped up story, and it just felt to me the most complete. So that one I give a 8.4 out of 10. Last Sleepover an 8.2. So while Camp Bigfoot is good, it's enjoyable, it's a fun time, I still think the other two are a little slight step up. So yeah, that's effectively my thoughts of One Night at Camp Bigfoot. If you enjoyed, feel free to support me by hitting that subscribe button first, then you hit the like button, then you comment down below. I know some of you are fiending to read this one. Let me know down below once you get the chance to read it, or if you've already read it, how did you feel about the book? What were your general thoughts? Do you agree or disagree with me? And let me know after. Some of you guys may pick up the book after watching this video. So after you're done reading, go let me know your thoughts down below. And let me know if you're excited for What We Do in the Night that's going to be coming out soon. I have lower expectations for that one than I did Camp Bigfoot. So if that one ends up being better than this one, I'll be shocked and I'll be pleasantly happy. But my bets are that that one won't be as good as this. So we'll see if I cash out or if I lose money. That's all I got for today. Deuces.